In our last episode, we finally discovered what happened to the missing caravans at the hub. It wasn't sabotage, it wasn't a death claw, it was mutants. And they weren't sacking caravans for the riches, they were sacking caravans to kidnap the people. Since this news cleared the name of the water merchants, we had a chat with them only to discover that they knew of a town called the Necropolis. A town that never bought any of their water. They surmised that this could only mean that the people who lived at the Necropolis have their own source of purified drinking water, and if they have that, they may have a water chip. When we compared this information with the information we found inside the Vault Locations holodisk that we got from Mrs. Stapleton, we discovered that Vault 12, which we know had a water purification chip, and the Necropolis are in roughly the same location. And so we left the hub, embarking on a journey that took many days to finally arrive at the Necropolis. The entrance to the Necropolis is the ruin of a pre-war motel. Outside the motel, we see puddles of blood all over the place. And peering through the cracks into the motel, we see huge green mutants, identical to the one we found in the Deathclaw Cave in our last episode. We can head inside with the hopes that they, like he, will have a conversation with us, only to find that they're hostile. "Come here, human," they say, and they attack. They taunt us throughout the battle. "Your gods have forsaken you." "Suffer, human!" Ha ha ha! What a feeble attempt! These mutants prove to be a difficult battle. If we survive and explore deeper into the Necropolis, we discover the bodies of ghouls strewn all over the place. They don't carry much on their inventory, a knife if we're lucky. But if we're thorough, we find a ghoul still living, hiding behind a bookcase. "Please don't kill me," he says. When we ask him what happened here, he says the super mutants attacked. We were slaughtered. They had guns and bombs, even some steam trucks. They killed my friends. The mutants just butchered us. A steam truck? When we ask him to elaborate, he says that it's some big thing that moved on wheels but without any Brahmin. Looks like we're wading into steampunk territory here. When we ask him why the super mutants attacked, he says that he heard that the mutants were upset that some human killed their men here, and that there may have been some ghouls that survived in the sewers. Incidentally, this steam truck is the only known working vehicle in all of Fallout lore, if you discount aerial vehicles like the Vertibird and the Pridwin, and I suppose boats. Even though it is described as a steam truck, it could still be nuclear powered. The nuclear reactor could simply boil water, producing the steam the vehicle needed to move. At any rate, this is the only living ghoul we find here, which is really disappointing for a place called the Necropolis. However, we only find the Necropolis in this state under certain conditions. The first time we enter the Necropolis, we trigger a 30-day countdown timer. 30 days after we visit this place, an army of super mutants raze it to the ground. Additionally, if we don't make it to the Necropolis before March 25th, 2162, which is 110 days after we leave Vault 13, we also find the entire city destroyed by super mutants. The problem is that neither of these two conditions are ever explained in the game, and therefore it's really easy for a player to come here and find everyone dead if they spent too much time in the hub, for example, running caravans for the Crimson Caravan to build up their character, buying more time from the water merchants, and arriving at the Necropolis much later. Or a player could easily do what I did and take a caravan job to the Necropolis and thereby enter it, but decide to save that location to explore for later and immediately head back to the hub. That still counts as entering the Necropolis, and that triggers a 30-day countdown timer. So even though I arrived here before March 25th, 2162, I found everyone dead. And so I had to reload a previous save, losing all the progress I made at the hub, just so that I could find someone to talk to when I arrived at the Necropolis. If we arrive for the first time before March 25th, 2162, we find the ghouls of the Necropolis alive and well. But heading over to talk with them, arrgh. they attack. Oh great, after all that, we gotta kill them all anyway. Thankfully, the ghouls prove not to be that much of a challenge. Before we head inside, however, we see a manhole cover on the ground. We'll come back to explore this in a second. Heading inside the motel, we can loot the place. At the front desk, we find some dynamite and flares, some stim packs, and an armoire in one of the hotel rooms. But none of the ghouls in here appear to be hostile. They allow us to explore. However, if we begin to loot a bookcase, the ghoul stops us and says, "What are you doing here?" We can say, "I'm searching for the remains of the future past." We explain that we are looking for technology, and the ghoul says, "Oh, none of that around here. Maybe up at the temple or at the water place. Get it going." Well, at least he doesn't attack, but sadly there's nothing in this bookcase. However, when we walk out the back door, we get attacked by another group of hostile ghouls. However, after killing these, the ones inside the motel don't turn hostile. But just outside, we find another manhole cover. Heading back into the motel, we can explore some of the other rooms, and if we try to loot a dresser too close to a ghoul, he says, "Don't mess with my stuff," and attacks. His friends attack too, and we have to put them down. But sadly, all we walk away with is some Nuka-Cola from the dresser. In the bookshelf in the northern room, we find some scrap to sell, a lighter and a bottle of beer. Heading out of the motel, there are two buildings to the north, both of which are bathrooms, which have a strange layout, toilets side by side with no stall dividers, and a bathtub in the middle. Okay, that's interesting. Moving northeast, trying to sneak past this group of ghouls, we find a third manhole cover. We'll have to circle back for this. Heading back into the motel, we can explore the final few containers, but we don't find much, and so now we have to tackle the sewers. Heading all the way back to the entrance, we can take off the manhole cover for the first sewer we found. This brings us down into the earth. We can go south or north. Heading south, we find a pack of mole rats, which are easy to kill. Once they're done, we head north, only to see that our path continues to the north or splits off to the west. Heading all the way north first, we find a ladder leading up. And sure enough, this brings us to that manhole cover at the northernmost point of the motel entrance. So we know where this goes now. Heading back down into the sewer, we can turn west. We pass by puddles of blood and knives on the ground, and heading south, we find another ladder that leads us up top behind the motel, where we had to kill that second group of ghouls. Well, we know where all three manhole covers lead, and they lead to the same sewer. Heading back to the sewer, the only path forward is to travel to the northwest. Heading all the way northwest leads us to a large room, lit by 3 barrels on fire. As soon as we arrive, a ghoul says, "Wait, don't shoot!" And Ian says, "This place gives me the creeps." "Thank you for not shooting first. Can I help you with anything?" When we ask him who he is, he says that he's the leader of a simple people who have left the surface because of the others. The surface of the necropolis and the necropolis's water is controlled by a boss named Set and his ghouls. The ghouls down here in the sewers are a much more peaceful group, and this pacifist nature disgusts the ghoul boss, Set. Set is just a ghoul like any other, but he has assumed a large amount of power above ground. However, this ghoul clearly doesn't hold him in high regard. He describes him as an oaf. We can press him on this. If Set is such an oaf, and if he and his goons are violent, why would they allow these pacifist ghouls to even live down here? And this ghoul explains by saying that Set is afraid of not having enough people to defend the necropolis if it was ever attacked. And so Set turns a blind eye. He knows these pacifists are down here and even gives them the water they need to survive. Water, incidentally, that they say came from a pump until recently, because now it's broken. We can press him on this, and he says that there's a water pump in a place called the Watershed, but someone has taken control of it. However, despite the ownership of the Watershed switching hands from Set to someone else, the water rations for the pacifists continue to be delivered, and this ghoul does not know why. That is confusing. Who would go out of their way to keep these ghouls alive by giving them water? But the bigger question I have is if, as he said, their water pump is broken, where are they getting these water rations? Could they have a backup source of water? Like a water chip? he tells us that the watershed and this pump are to the north, but the only way to get there is to take the sewers. But our curiosity about this water pump makes this ghoul suspicious, and he flat out asks us, "You aren't thinking of taking the water chip from us, are you?" And that is the evidence we need. They do have a water chip. Now we have a few ways to respond. We could say, me? No, I would never do such a thing. I'm just gonna go see how it works, is all. But that lie doesn't fly with this ghoul, and he says that he doesn't believe us. We can be oafish and say we're gonna take it anyway, or we can say, look, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to deceive you, but what's wrong with taking the water chip anyway? And he explains that if we take the water chip, then all the ghouls here will die, including the pacifists underground. And at last he clarifies the plot a little bit. They have two sources of water. One is a water pump, which is broken, and the other is a water chip, which is functional. They were using the water pump to pump groundwater to the surface, but since that has broken, they're relying on their only source of water left, and that's the water chip. With the pump broken, if we take the water chip, all these ghouls die. We can say, hey, is it possible to fix the water pump? And he says that may be difficult. The parts needed to fix the pump were lost in the sewers under the watershed. And the sewers are now filled with monsters. None of his people that he's ever sent to retrieve those parts have ever come back. Well, we just happen to be adept at defeating monsters in sewers, and so we can offer to go and fetch the parts to fix the water pump. He says, thank you. When you get the parts, return here. It's possible that I can help you further. So, what a conversation. We have a lot to think about here. We could continue with our quest and follow the sewers to the north to find the watershed, the water chip, and the broken water pump. Repair the pump, get the chip, make the ghouls happy, and head back to Vault 13. But then there's this Set character. Why is he afraid of an attack? Before we head off to the watershed, let's see if we can find this Set. Set doesn't have a very good reputation down here. The ghouls here say Set is an incompetent fool who will get us all killed. Down here we also find a first aid kit by a bedroll. But to continue, we follow the sewers to the east. Here we pass two ghoul lookouts. They can't talk now, they're watching out for danger. And we find a split. We can go north or we can go south. Heading south, we find a ladder. I want to see exactly what the layout of this sewer is before moving on, so retracing our steps and this time going north, we find yet another split, to the north and to the east. Heading east first, we find a whole bunch of rats. These just consume our time more than anything. The path then turns to the north, where we have to kill some mole rats, and here we find the corpses of a few zombie guards. These must be the ghouls that the pacifists sent into the sewers to find the parts needed to repair the broken water pump. We don't find anything interesting until we loot the corpse of the ghoul furthest to the northwest, and on his body we find our first energy weapon, a plasma pistol. The plasma pistol is interesting. It deals 15 to 35 damage, and it has a range of 20, and it consumes a completely different type of ammunition called small energy cells. When compared to the 223 pistol we already had, it's not really a better item, just an alternative. The 223 pistol does between 20 and 30 damage, so it has a smaller range. The plasma pistol has the potential to do more damage, but it also has the potential to do less damage. But the really crippling thing is that the plasma pistol has a whopping 10 less range, despite the fact that its art image shows it with a scope attached. That said, it does hold 16 rounds before we have to reload it, compared to the 223 pistol's 5 rounds. I probably won't be using it for now, simply because I don't have high enough energy weapon skill to make good use of it. Retracing our steps, we again arrive at that split, and this time we'll head north to finish exploring these sewers before we pick a path. And immediately to the north, we find a ladder to the surface, and then continuing north, we round a corner to find another ladder to the surface. We hear the sounds of activity to the north. This tells us there are other chambers to this sewer, but from here we don't find a path that leads to them. So our only option now is to head to the surface. And we'll start by retracing our steps all the way back to the ghoul lookouts and taking the first ladder we found to the surface. This brings us inside a building. We can loot a few of the containers in this room. In one bookshelf, we find some lockpicks. Incidentally, this is the bookshelf behind which we found the ghoul if we arrived too late, and found all of the ghouls dead. As we're about to leave, we are confronted. What are you doing here? Answer wisely. This could be your only chance. We find a number of options that turn all of the ghouls hostile, including a sarcastic response to say, "Oh, this building is condemned. I've come to serve the final notice." But if we want to pass by without turning them hostile, we can say that we are looking for the boss. He tells us that Set isn't here and orders us to leave. But before we leave, we can go into a northern room where we find a whole bunch of ghouls. They only attack if we explore the nearby containers. But even after killing them, we don't find much in the bookcase, just some liquor. So heading on out, the only way forward we can move is to the west. And here we find an entire field filled with ghouls yelling, "Arr!" So I guess they're pirate ghouls. However, if we steer clear of them, we can avoid a conflict. Continuing to the northwest, we find the entrance to a very large building. Outside, we find intimidating sculptures which are trademarks of the Fallout universe, hunched over beings holding globes on their shoulders, and just outside the door is a guard. "Go away! You're not wanted here!" We can try to be polite and ask him for help, but he still tells us to go away. Despite this, we can ignore him, and walking on by, we can enter what appears to be the remains of a church. We see ghouls in rooms on either side, and 3 cages, each of which contains a glowing one. And the glowing ones look at us and go, To avoid angering this horde of ghouls by exploring, we can head to the front of this church and speak with the man in charge, Set.
There'd better be a killer reason for standing in my shadow. Does next on the menu ring a bell for ya, Normie?
Whoa, what happened to your face?
I'm gonna eat you up and be singing that happy tummy song. I got that happy tummy.
And with that lovely tune, Set and his ghouls attack. Individually, they may not be very difficult, but when Set attacks here, he brings with him the horde. Alternatively, we can avoid instigating this guy by saying, "Wow, you're pretty smart for a ghoul."
What is that? Sucking up? Listen, Walker, I don't do the deal with norms, so blowing smoke up the tail ain't gonna get you head seat at the table.
Or we can say, "Oh, killer it is, no doubt. Obviously, I found the head, man."
Simple time. I'm Set. I'm in charge. Get it?
We can try to tweak this guy to get more information out of him. We can say, "According to my info, you're just a second-rate minion."
You have no idea whose shadow you stomp.
A second-rate minion. I know your boss. Not happy.
You walk for him? You're his snake, straight? Here to skin me? Oh, I swear you'll tombstone too.
Whoa, don't misinterpret. I'm not his. I'm here to help.
It didn't sound it.
I understand. He is my problem too. Talk to me.
The Necropolis was mine. Not in all things great, but a straight place for my kind. Then the Master showed. He could have fragged me good. But it was easy for him to just stand some muties and keep an eye on.
And with that, things are starting to come together. We recall the last words of the super mutant whom we found dying in the Deathclaw cave.
Father, where are you, Father? Yes, Master.
He called his father Master. And here Set tells us that the Master invaded the Necropolis with his super mutants. So the Master is the one sending super mutants out into the wasteland to kidnap humans. But we still don't know why. And this helps us make sense of what we learned in the sewers from the pacifists. They said that someone had taken over the water pump, but they didn't know who. Well, now we do. The Master and his super mutants have taken over the water pump. Set said that the master spared he and his ghouls because he just didn't want to bother wasting his resources killing them. But that doesn't mean the master won't come back to kill them later, which is why Set is still giving water to the pacifists in the sewers, hoping that if the master does attack, they'll come out of the sewers to defend the necropolis. We begin to see exactly why Set here is so upset. We can apologize for our tone a bit earlier and say, sorry, I have an odd sense of humor.
So funny my face hurts. Try again and my elites will juice ya. Got it?
As always, we have plenty of opportunities to insult him, which will just turn him hostile. So instead we can say, is there anything else I should know?
No. More questions?
Yeah, what can I do for you?
The mutants at the watershed need dirt naps. Makes my shadow grow. You slice them and rewards run to you. Info too.
A reward and some info. Sounds interesting. Done.
Excellent. Teach those mutants the last lesson, then amble back. If I say to my ghouls to hold off you, the muties might hear and know. So I tell you what, it's favorite time. I keep shut. Got it?
Well, what about all the ghouls?
Avoid my ghouls if you like your skin on. Any of mine that can't stop a normie deserve last rest. Get by as you need.
Great. He asks for our help, but his ghouls are going to be attacking us anyway. Thanks, Set. Well, it doesn't pay to explore this church right now unless our sneak and steal are really high. These ghouls have keen eyesight, and if they spot us opening any of these containers, they turn hostile, including Set. And if he does, we can no longer do his quest. So bypassing looting the church now, we can head back to the manhole we found inside that building and go back down into the sewer. Ladder 1 of 3 explored. To explore ladder 2, we go back north up the sewer, past the rat-infested path to the right, and climb the ladder. This brings us to a hidden chamber behind Set's throne. Here we can loot freely without the ghouls attacking. In a bookshelf, we find a shotgun with some shotgun shells and a police baton. Back down the ladder, we have one path yet to explore. Continuing north, we go down the hallway round the corner and climb up ladder number 3. This brings us up inside yet another ruined room. But we see that the buildings outside are completely different. Tiptoeing past the ghouls in this room so as not to anger them, we can head outside. Heading northwest into the road, we see our first mutant. This is Larry. Set wants us to exterminate the mutant. But at the same time, we need to find this water chip and repair the water pump. It just so happens that if we get too close to the mutant, he stays neutral. If you disturb the boss, he's gonna hit you, he says. But he doesn't attack. We see a tiny square building next to this longer one. Inside we find another mutant. This is Terry. Hey, no talking. It disturbs my thinking. Heading out, and if we look to the southwest, we see another ruined building, but inside... Wait a minute, what is that? Heading down, is that a child of the cathedral? We offer healing of the body to heal the spirit. Can I help you? Well, it's great to find a doctor here, but what are the children of the cathedral doing here? If we ask him this, he says that we children of the cathedral live and work amongst those unfortunates living in the wasteland. If you ever get to the boneyard, he says, stop by the cathedral. It's strange to find them here. It's also interesting that we don't find them near to Set. Set and his ghouls are the original occupants of the Necropolis. If these children of the cathedral were really here to help the unfortunate, they would be here with them. But they're not. They're here with the super mutants. Super mutants who are ignoring them. How do we explain this? Well, sadly, this room doesn't offer up any secrets. So to continue exploring, we head back north to finally enter the big long building.
Hey, you not look like Ghoul. How come?
Oh, that's because I dressed up really snazzy today.
Ooh, that was snazzy like, huh?
All right, I was just fooling you. I'm not a ghoul.
You not Ghoul. I knew. Not fool Harry.
Yeah, that's pretty obvious.
You not ghoul. Or to say, not ghoul, not be here.
Oh, okay, thanks. I'll be leaving now.
Oh, okay. Have nice day.
If we're lucky, that's all it takes to bluff our way past this guy so we can finish exploring this building. Or we can question him further and say, orders? Who's giving you orders?
Lou tell me watch place. Not let no one in. Not normals most. Take normals to the loo. Hey.
Oh, but I'm not a normal.
Ooh, Harry confused. You not ghoul. You not normal. What you?
We have three options. We could say, oh, I'm a new race of super mutant. Or, I'm a highly advanced robot. Both of these are speech checks. If we fail the check, Harry here says,
No. Harry know you not. Not like you.
and he attacks. But if we pass the check, Harry says,
Okay. Harry think what to do.
And the third option is to admit, all right, Harry, you got me. I am normal.
Harry think he beat your head now.
In which case he attacks. But there is a third outcome. Instead of attacking him, or instead of bluffing our way past him to leave him alone, we can insist that he brings us to his boss by saying, I want you to take me to your superiors.
Okay. Take it to Lou.
In which case the screen goes dark and Harry takes us to Lou. But this visit with his superior Lou is a huge spoiler. It reveals a lot of the plot to the game that we otherwise don't get until much later. So we'll save this interview with Harry's boss Lou until later in the game. Don't worry, I'll show you everything that we would discover here, but at a more appropriate time. Instead, we're gonna bluff our way past Harry here and explore this building. In the room next to Harry, we find Barry, Gary, and Sally. Barry says, I'm gonna get you for waking me up. Gary says, shut up. And Sally says, why does everyone talk to me funny? These guys really have no purpose aside from being extra muscle that Harry can use to attack if necessary. Continuing to the right, we find a big piece of machinery and a whole bunch of water tanks. This is the water pump, but upon inspecting it with our science skill, we discover that the water pump isn't working due to a broken vacuum pump. Now, the pacifists in the sewers said that we can find the parts we need to fix this pump by continuing to explore the sewers to the north. We'll have to find a way there in a moment. Continuing south in this building, we find 3 cages. Unlocking the furthest to the right, inside we find a hole in the ground with a ladder leading to the sewers. We'll come back here in a minute. Unlocking the middle cage, we find a ghoul inside. We gain 500 experience for freeing the ghoul prisoner, and the prisoner says, thanks for letting me out. Once he's free, we can ask him where the water comes from. They pump it up from the wells below. There's a manhole in the cell next door that leads to the old vault. This is the source of the water. If it wasn't for those ones below, we would be a lot better off. What do you mean, we can ask? It's difficult to make the old tech work properly sometimes. The glowing ones lash out whenever we go down there. Us ghouls just leave them alone, and the big mutants don't seem to care one bit. Well, with that, we can wish him good luck and say goodbye, and we learn that we're right. The vault, which is likely Vault 12, is indeed directly below us. But according to this ghoul, it's likely inhabited by glowing ones. I wonder, though, why they're so protective of the water purification technology in the vault. We don't find anything in the third cell, and nothing in the attached room. So to continue, we go back into the far eastern cell and take the ladder down. This brings us to another level with yet another ladder down. Heading deeper into the earth, we arrive at a long hallway that goes off into the northwest, and this hallway is guarded by 2 glowing ones. Even if we don't attack, both of these glowing ones are immediately hostile. You tread without permission, they shout, which leads us to believe that their minds may not be rotted away. Or at least, perhaps not rotted away fully. With the glowing ones dead, we can continue northwest, and sure enough, we find the entrance to a vault. This is indeed Vault 12, but the vault door is gone. We never learn any further details about this vault from the game itself, but according to the Fallout Bible, which may or may not be canon, Vault 12 was designed to provide shelter for 1,000 people. The insane experiment that Vault Tech chose to do here was to see what would happen if the vault door didn't close properly after the bombs dropped. That's why we don't find a vault door outside Vault 12. They wanted to see exactly how much radiation would seep into a vault that didn't have the door, and how this radiation would affect a secluded population. On the day of the apocalypse, the 1,000 people who had been chosen for Vault 12 raced to the vault and were safely secured inside. But then the other people of Bakersfield who didn't have a vault to go to followed them down there, which is what happened at almost every vault in the nation. But this time they found the door ajar, and so they wrenched it open, possibly being the ones who removed the door completely, in an attempt to secure a place inside the vault. With this knowledge, we arrive at a horrifying conclusion. The ghouls of the Necropolis are the original vault dwellers of Vault 12, and possibly some of the people of Bakersfield who survived the initial blast. The results of Vault Tech's experiment is that everyone became so heavily irradiated that they became ghouls. I'm sure some may have died succumbing to radiation poisoning, but we find so many ghouls here in the Necropolis that a great percentage of them must have turned into ghouls. And at least at this point in the history of the Fallout universe, many of them had not gone feral yet. Every ghoul so far we find can speak. They're territorial. They still value personal possessions. They attack us if we loot their things. And some of these glowing ones are very protective of their vault. Could the glowing ones have at one time been vault security? Perhaps these glowing ones are still trying to do their job, prevent people from entering the vault, and tampering with the water purification technology that the vault dwellers would have needed to stay alive. Perhaps these ghouls are in the middle of a transition. They're not wholly sane, but they're not wholly insane either. They're somewhere between a non-feral and a feral ghoul, having enough presence of mind to be able to speak, but not enough to realize that not everyone they see is a threat. The Fallout Bible further elaborates on the history of Vault 12 and the Necropolis. It wasn't until the summer of 2083 that the survivors of Vault 12 and Bakersfield founded the Necropolis. The two communities combined were just too large to fit in the original vault, and since they were irradiated already, they moved their society topside. And then almost a year later, Set wrested control of the society from the original overseer of Vault 12 and exiled him to wander the wasteland, whereupon he walked north and was never heard from again. The first floor of the vault had the same layout as many of the vaults here we've seen on the West Coast. Taking the elevator down to floor 2, all we find here are more glowing ones, but they mostly ignore us for now. We can explore each of these rooms, but we don't find anything. However, if we enter the room furthest to the northwest, the ghouls here do attack. Perhaps we just got too close. We don't find anything else on this floor, so heading back to the elevator and going to floor number 3, we see more glowing ones in a conference room to the northeast, others in the library to the northwest, but bypassing these, we can explore a locker room in the middle of the vault, but both lockers are empty. To continue, we travel to the east. Here we find 3 glowing ones stooping over the corpse of a merchant. Looks like we're not the first to find our way down here. But what exactly was this merchant looking for? Perhaps he's from the water merchants, and he came here looking for the source of the Necropolis's water. If he could sabotage it, then the people of the Necropolis would be forced to purchase water from the water merchants. I'm speculating here, but whatever the reason this man is here, he never found what he was looking for. Continuing to the east, we find a computer room, but only one of these computers is still functional. It is still blinking red while all the others are deactivated. When we inspect it, we learn that it is the water processing control computer. We crack open the console and we easily remove the water chip from the computer. But as soon as we remove it, we hear the flow of water to the city stop. But for retrieving the water chip, we gain 2,500 experience. However, on our way out, the glowing ones shout, the flow ends, and so does your life. Perhaps this merchant did find the water chip, but these ghouls killed him on the way out, took the chip from him, and put it back. But thankfully, these ghouls prove not to be a challenge for our party. Our 223 pistol cuts through them like butter. But that's it for Vault 12. We don't find any other containers to loot, and no more information on any of the terminals. So taking the elevator all the way back to floor number 1, we can leave the vault and then climb up the ladders all the way back to the Necropolis. Now, we have the water chip. We could leave the Necropolis and go back to Vault 13 to save the day. But that would leave these ghouls without water. Their water pump is still broken. The pacifists told us we would find the parts we need to repair the water pump in the sewers to the north, but we were just underground. We found a vault, but we didn't find a continuation to the sewers. It isn't until we leave the building that we see a sewer grate in the middle of the road. Removing the manhole cover, we can climb the ladder down into the sewers. The path leads south, and as earlier, we find mole rats and rats all over the place. Following the path to the northeast and clearing the rodents along our way, we find a pile of junk. Could these be the parts we need to repair the pump? We'll try that, but first let's finish exploring, retracing our steps, and this time following the path to the southwest. We can kill all the rats here for the experience, and here we find another ladder leading topside. This puts us out a manhole just south of the children of the cathedral, whom we found in that one building. Well, we have everything we need. But the pacifists told us that once we get the parts, we should first return to them. So heading back to the manhole cover that connects to the second sewer, we can take it down and then follow the path all the way to the pacifists' camp. As soon as we approach, the pacifist says, "I see that you have what you came here to find. You realize that we will die if you take the water chip from us." But we can tell him that we found a pile of junk. Are these the parts you're looking for to repair the water pump? Yes, those are the parts, he says. Thank the flow that you already have them. When we ask him if there's anything else we should know, he says, you may need some help using these parts, and he gives us 3 copies of Dean's Electronics, each of which increases our repair skill. Well, that's a big clue if we've ever been given one. Looks like we need a high repair skill in order to repair the pump. At this point, we could head directly to the pump, but before we do, we can stop by Set to see what he has to say. As we approach...
You vanished our water processor chip, exchanged it for your life.
We can say, I needed the chip to save my own vault. Sorry.
Your price is to belong to Necropolis forever.
In which case he attacks. And he attacks if we say, will sorry do? The only way to continue with Set without having him attack is to say, well, do you want it back?
For the chip, you may walk.
If we say, gotcha, I don't have it anymore, or I'd rather see you dead, he attacks. Or we can hand it over by saying, okay, here it is.
If your shadow touches Necropolis again, it will merge forever.
And we learn that Set passes the water chip to a ghoul who runs off with it. Now, we don't find it on his inventory or any other ghoul's inventory. Presumably, he went back to Vault 12 and reinstalled the water chip, in which case we've just given ourselves more work. However, if we return to Set with both the water chip and the junk that we found in the sewer, we find a new option here to say we both need working chips. Apparently, there's only one. Is there another method we haven't thought about?
A path, perhaps. An alternate pump exists, but not its actions. None of mine can breathe that life.
So he's trying to tell us what we already know, that there is a water pump, but it's broken and none of his ghouls here know how to fix it. Well, perhaps I should take a look at the pump.
Garrett will walk you. Revive the pump, keep the chip.
And with that, we arrive back at the water pump. Now, I tried going about repairing this pump a number of ways. When I tried using a tool to repair the pump, which if used is supposed to add 20 to our repair skill, I kept getting a message saying, that does nothing. Then when I tried using my repair skill, which was only at 26%, I kept getting a message that I've failed and the pump may need a new fuse. Then when I tried using the junk in my inventory on the pump, I kept getting the message, "You're having difficulties making these parts work." Thankfully, I had just leveled up, so putting all of my points into repair, bumping my percentage chance up to 42, the next time I tried using the junk, I succeeded. The massive pump struggles to life after you successfully install the missing parts, and we gain 1,000 experience for fixing the pump. Once the pump is repaired, if we head back to Sat,
Still in my shadow? Why do normie tongues waggle and take the movement from their bones? Clear time. Walk now.
and that's right. He still wants us to kill the super mutants. However, heading back to the ghoul leader of the pacifists, he says thank you for repairing the water pump, and I hope all is well with your people when you return with what you have found. With that, we can wish him well, say goodbye, and head back to the mutants. Well, there's nothing for it. If we're gonna please Set and get the information from him that he promised us, we've got to kill them all. We start with Larry on the outside. This angers Terry in his little room, which in turn angers Harry in the main building. And once he is dead, we get rushed by Gary, then Barry, and Sally. When all the mutants are dead, we can loot their corpses, and we walk away with some pretty decent stuff. We find another sniper rifle on Harry's corpse, and as I said previously, Tycho is pretty deadly with this thing, so I'm going to go ahead and give this second one to him. We also find a laser rifle on one of the corpses, dealing between 25 and 50 damage. It holds 12 rounds and has almost as much range as the sniper rifle. 45 compared to 50, and it uses a unique ammunition called the microfusion cell, but again, because my energy weapon skill is not that high, I won't be using it right now. In Harry's bookshelf, we find a bunch of 10mm ammunition, some 44 Magnum rounds, and some rockets. But most interestingly, after we kill the super mutants, if we head south to talk with the children of the cathedral, they say, "We have no time to talk. We are leaving. This place is dangerous for us." So they're saying that a place with super mutants is safer than a place without them? Something isn't adding up with these children, fellows. But we don't have time to worry about it now. We have a vault to save, and we need to check in with Set. Heading back to the church, we can tell Set that the mutants are dead.
Well done. You've earned my sight, Walker. Follow Garrett for your reward. Now, I'm busy.
And he doesn't divulge any of the information he promised us. However, we can ask him some questions if we ask him about the Brotherhood of Steel.
Relics. We surpass. They don't know. Their sight is narrow. Only what they believe.
If we ask him about the children of the cathedral.
Beneath my thoughts.
If we ask him about ghouls.
The future. Survival anywhere. We surpass the norms.
And if we ask him about this master fellow.
His meaning has no place here. None.
If we ask him about super mutants.
An error to the world. A blot on my sight. I hate every facet.
And if we ask him about the Necropolis.
Where your shadow lies. My home. My rule. A place where strength grows.
Now, we heard the children of the cathedral talking about some sort of unity when we met them with High Priestess Jane in the hub. If we ask Set here about the unity.
Misguided ideals. Nothing to my sight. Nothing at all.
And since we know that he's one of the original Vault Dwellers from Vault 12, we can ask him about the war.
The beginning. World to ashes. Ashes to growth. Our life.
When done interviewing Set, his guard Garrett brings us into a southern room. He then takes some flares, Coke bottles, and 50 caps out of a nearby refrigerator and hands it to us. That's it. That's our great reward for helping the ghouls of the Necropolis. We can unlock this fridge, and we appear to be far enough away from the ghoul guard so as not to anger him. Inside, we find quite a stash of shotgun shells and a shotgun. There are a few other minor items we can find in the containers here in the church, but nothing really worth mentioning. But you know, there's one question we never got answered. Why did the Master come here with his mutants to begin with? Was he trying to wage war on the ghouls? But if so, why didn't he just kill them outright? He seemed awfully interested in the vault. After all, that's where he stationed his mutants, in the watershed. Was he here for the water? Was he trying to secure the water chip for his own purposes? Perhaps we'll find the answers if we explore elsewhere in the wasteland. After we leave the Necropolis, we should never come back. And that's because the moment we step foot here, we initiated a 30-day countdown timer that leads to the invasion of the super mutants, resulting in the ghoul bloodbath we saw at the beginning of this episode. When the ghoul behind the bookcase said that the mutants came here because some human killed their friends, that was us, killing Harry, Larry, Terry, Barry, and all of the other mutants here. I believe that event presumes that we spent time here killing mutants, even though it can trigger if we only step foot here and then immediately leave. However, the mutant invasion of the Necropolis only happens if we arrive back after the 30 days passes. We can still get the best ending for the Necropolis even after 30 days as long as we never come back. And we learn the canonical fate of the Necropolis during the events of Fallout 2, combined with knowledge we got from the Fallout Bible. The canonical ending is that in March of this year, 2162, the mutants did indeed come back, razing the Necropolis to the ground and killing all of the ghouls they could find. Only a few ghouls, like the one we found behind the bookcase, remained. Most of the survivors fled during the attack. They traveled the wasteland in what is called the Great Ghoul Migration, and eventually helped settle new ghoul-friendly towns like Gecko, Dayglow, and Broken Hills. The Fallout Bible also tells us that the fate of Ian is forever entwined with that of the Necropolis, for it tells us that during the Vault Dwellers' adventure here, Ian was killed in February of 2162. A super mutant using a laser weapon reduced Ian to cinder. Now, you'll still see Ian in my gameplay, because in my gameplay he survived. And it's possible that this ending for Ian is not canonical, because we must remember that the Fallout Bible is only considered to be semi-canon now. So I suppose it's up to us to individually choose to believe whether or not Ian died here at the Necropolis. And with that, we fully explore the Necropolis. We walk away understanding the history of Vault 12, and we've recovered the water chip. We now have to race home to Vault 13 to save it before all our family and friends die of thirst. We'll visit Vault 13 and hand over the water chip in tomorrow's episode. I publish many videos each and every week here on my channel, so if you want to make sure you don't miss that episode, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. I have a shirt shop with a number of unique designs you can't find anywhere else. My designs come on shirts in a variety of men's, women's, and children's sizes, and in a wide array of colors. They also come on other products as well, smartphone cases, pillows, posters, mugs, prints, etc. So if interested, you can find a link to my shop in the description below, or you can click here. If you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early, for episode 8.